construed by the public utilities and also by Encore, and I think it's very unfair that we have to be subjected to having this smart meter, deemed smart meter, that was never mandated, and it was originally encouraged and suggested. It was never mandated for us to have it, and now I'm in a position of where I'm paying mortgage and I have to stay in my living room, and it's not fair to us as well as people that don't know anything about it. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Sutton. We appreciate you being aware of the time as well.
Could we get the appropriate Encore person to come up here and if, sir, if you would donate your chair to the cause so that we can have a fifth person come up here and, yeah, yes, sir, and bring it up here if you would, please. And then I'd like somebody to come and obviously if this is a matter that's involved in any kind of litigation, we understand you can't discuss it.
No, it's not.
But I would, otherwise I'd like to see what and how Encore addresses these kind of issues. You know, undoubtedly this isn't the only such complaint you've received on this, but I have no idea how many you have or haven't received, but I guess maybe that would be the first question. How prevalent are complaints of this nature?
And if you would state your name.
Yes, my name is Mark Carpenter. I'm Senior Vice President of T&D Operations for Encore. Through the deployment, we've had several complaints like this. We have met with many customers. We've worked with them. We've showed them the emissions from the meter. In some cases, we adjust the meter down. We've done various things to reduce power in those particular cases. Generally, we're able to work with the customer and satisfy their needs. We do try to work with all our customers. We also have some rules, and when a customer removes their meter in an unauthorized fashion and replaces it with something else, that falls under tampering. Not only is it dangerous for an unauthorized person to pull these things and expose electrical conductors, it's against the law. And so we do respond to that, and we do replace those meters with an Encore meter versus just a meter the customer puts in the premises.
And what kind of Encore meter do you replace it with?
We replace it with a smart meter.
A different smart meter?
Yes, sir. I'm on my third smart meter, to be exact.
You don't go back in and put any kind of analog meter in there. You just replace it.
We replace it with a smart meter. If we have about 600 customers right now on the Encore system that do not have smart meters, and if a customer with a smart meter just chooses to pull their meter out, we don't replace it with any other kind of meter than a smart meter. It's really the only meter we carry.
And I apologize for having to step out of the room a couple of times earlier, but what do you do, though? How do you resolve a situation like this where you have a customer that continues to complain that they feel they have health-related side effects from these meters? I mean, eventually, I guess it gets, how does it eventually get resolved? This gentleman obviously says he's had 3 and he still can't sleep near the meter. So how do you deal with that?
We've dealt with it one-on-one with various customers that will deal with us. Pulling a meter out and just replacing a meter with another meter is not dealing with us, and so we will attempt to deal with customers on a one-on-one basis.
You go out and test?
Yes, we go out and test. We go out and adjust meters. We do various things to see if we can improve the situation.
Are you aware of any medical findings, legitimate medical findings or reports that would indicate that there might be the possibility of health-related side effects of these meters?
The literature that we've read, and also Dr. Gilman, who testified several months ago,
right,
who's a head cancer doctor, research doctor, indicated that to the best of his knowledge, there was no evidence that they caused these kind of problems. Also, we do know that the relative strength of these meters relative to many other electronic devices such as cell phones, baby monitors, and the like, these are very small relative to that. They only transmit in little bitty spurts about 93 seconds a day.
But when they are transmitting, I'm just curious what home appliance it might be the equivalent of in terms of radiation or other exposure.
Much less than telephones, much less than baby monitors, and much less than microwaves.
Corona, can I please interject?
Yes, sir.
I know I have my 3 minutes. What he's stating as far as what it's registering, also in with me purchasing the analog meter, I also purchased a handheld meter to register the RF radiation. And what he's saying is not so. When I went outside of my home and I put the meter on the smart meter outside, the meter went off and stayed buried in the corner. It couldn't go any further but on the ground. And when I went inside my home, like I said, we were living in the sleeping in the living room. When I went in my room, because my smart meter is on the exterior of my bedroom wall, when I put the meter on the wall behind the meter, it was buried as well.
Let me ask this, because we don't want to get into a debate situation, but I definitely appreciate your testimony. I'd ask that Encore look into this situation.
We will.
And with the appropriate equipment and with the customer, obviously, and then would you mind reporting back to
I certainly
me?
will.
Thank you. We'll look into it. We'll try our best to understand it better. We're doing the best we can as a committee based upon, you know, what scientific information we have thus far. And there's been great additional information provided recently that's really given the committee an opportunity to take a whole nother look at all of this. But but a look is all we're doing, and we're not qualified scientists up here, so it takes some pretty significant data, if you will, to get us persuaded in a different direction. I'm going to
Okay.
for time.
All
I'm
right.
going to need to call it.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Carpenter, if you'd stay close, Ms. Summerlin.
Afternoon, Chairman and panel. My name is LaShonda Summerlin, and I am a citizen of Copper Cove, Texas. I too would just like to say that I've had symptoms, as my husband stated, from that I noticed since the smart meter was installed. I had insomnia to the point where I could not sleep for over 36 hours periodically, and this has never happened to me before. And since moving into my living room for about 3 months now, I've not had that. I've had a problem staying awake, which is good. But it's still showing me that it's probably not as accurate as they would like to depict, that it's not causing problems. I also have a daughter whose room is next to our room. She has been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Not a medical fact, but my daughter, her physician also said that Crohn's disease has been on the rise. They have no idea why. I'm not connecting the two. But what I will say is that we do know that EMF radiation is very sensitive to the GI tract and stomach areas, and so her doctor won't even give her too many x-rays because of that, because it's a very sensitive area. So for them to say that it emits low levels, I should have the choice to have no levels because of my daughter's pre-existing condition and other effects that it may cause on my family. I can choose not to have a cell phone. I can choose not to use my microwave, and it's not constantly emitting these things, and if I want to distance myself from that too, I can do so. I have no choice in this matter. And when you take away the choice of the consumer, that's a problem. That's a concern of mine. And I also got something this morning, an email from Reliance, which is my energy provider, retail electric company. But they have a breakdown of my energy usage, which also poses a concern for a lot of consumers. It told me how much energy I used on my refrigerator, how much I use for heating and cooling, and it says other. But I'm sure that other they can probably break down. They're not giving it to me, but it's an invasion of my privacy. I want the electricity. I pay them for that. I don't need that breakdown. And I'm sure in a larger scheme of things that it works out for the corporate America in a different way. But I'm saying as a consumer and as the bottom of the totem pole, but it's very important to the consumers what they're doing with this information and how long-term it may affect us. And so I just would really appreciate you all to take into consideration that it's just not about the grid and the larger scheme of things, but it's about the people. It's about people. How is it affecting the person? Thank you.
Any questions, members? Thank you. Russell Ramsland.
I'm Russell Ramsland. Every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, the meter sends out a message with bursts up to 50,000 microwatts per square meter. And because these meters are deployed in a mesh deployment, a large number of these meters talk to each other, meaning the duty cycle of a smart meter can be almost continuous. There are no independent scientific research establishing the safety of smart meters. The FCC standards that are referred to are totally inadequate. That's a quote by regulatory agencies, including the FDA, the EPA, and the National Institute of Occupational Safety. The FCC standards referred to use pre-1986 data before the internet and when cell phones were rare. There are more than 6,000 peer-reviewed submissions published showing potentially harmful effects of the exposure to RF radiation from wireless digital transmission. Most interesting one, or one of the most interesting, is the Sutro Tower Childhood Cancer Study from 1973 to 1988, which demonstrates the chilling reality of RF radiation for 3 reasons. First, it took place over a 15-year interval so that it had sufficient time to study the problem. Secondly, back then the tower was the primary source of RF in the area, and thus it was the perfect laboratory setting for such a study. And third, it showed a virtually perfect correlation between distance from the tower and the incidence of childhood leukemia. Children living under the tower were 18 times, not 18%, 18 times more likely to develop leukemia, while several miles away children still were 4 times as likely. By the way, the smart meter radiation is quite often far above that was in this study. Medical doctors, health professionals, and PhDs warn of RF exposure and smart meters. Dr. David Carpenter, a Harvard Medical School trained physician and the head of the New York State Department of Public Health for 18 years, says that it is absolutely false that there is any evidence that exposure to smart meter radiation is safe, and evidence that the studies show convincingly and consistently quite the opposite. Dr. Stephanie Carter gave similar testimony before the Texas PUC on August 12th, and a paper entitled Smart Meters Correcting Gross Information, signed by 50 PhDs and MDs, backs the same thing. The World Health Organization declared RF radiation to be a significant cancer risk and placed it in the same carcinogen category as lighted gasoline, DDT, and exhaust fumes. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine said it's unacceptable from a public health standpoint to implement this technology, and that a moratorium on smart meter installation is of the highest priority. 56 California municipal governments oppose any mandatory wireless smart meter programs and have instituted an opt-out or an outright ban on the meters. The factual evidence demonstrates national and global regulatory agencies, municipal and state governments, scientists and physicians, and the general public believe there are clearly health risks from the RF technology. This is just like the tobacco industry of the 60s. Only those studies sponsored by the industry tell you that they are safe.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsden. If you would, I know you have written testimony there. If you'd provide that to the clerk, we'll get that to each of the members.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make sure that gets in the permanent record. Now, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
May I, Encore, what say you? I mean, those were powerful statements, and it seemed like our speaker had sourced his material well. So tell me.
Well, first of all, I'm not a medical expert, and I haven't looked at his sources. The sources that we've looked at, including our PUC recent study of the literature, has concluded different than he said here. Also, the statement that these meters propagate continuously because of the mesh network that they're in, the calculation of the 93 seconds per day that I gave you included the mesh arrangement, and so that repeating is in there as well. Now, I'm not a medical expert. I've got 5 kids. I've got 4 grandkids. I've got 1 grandkid on the way. I've got 2 aged parents, and 2 of them live out of state, 3 of them live in Texas, and they all have smart meters on their homes. So I'm, personally vested in these things as well, so I believe them to be safe.
Is there anybody from the PUC that's with us today?
Yes, we do have 2, Mr.
Can
Chairman.
we get a PUC resource up here? And gentlemen,
Christine Wright.
if you'll offer up your chair. Thank you, Senator Hancock.
Ms. Wright, if you'd introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Senators. I'm